And thank you and welcome back. So for folks who are watching us on video, just a reminder, when we ended before, we had ended at step 2 and stopped and took questions for folks who had questions about things that Cawanna and I did as mediators in step 1 and step 2. And we are getting ready to move into step 3 of the process, which is identifying and framing topics. And Cawanna and I talked a little bit offline about which topics we wanted to go over, which topics we wanted to list. So there were several topics in this role play that could be broken up, and we've decided to chunk some of them. So there's communication, dogs, trash cans, gas, mice could be a topic. And what we decided to do was chunk, and deck could be a topic, and maybe even fence. What we decided to do was to chunk guest and deck under guest, and the trash cans, the mice, and the backyard, we're just calling all of that backyard. Okay. And we divvied up the responsibilities for which one of us is gonna frame which topic. So we're only gonna frame 2 of the topics for the sake of time, but we, probably would have 2, 3 to 4 topics, depending on how they do it, but we're just gonna do 2 of them for the sake of time, okay? Because I wanna make sure we get a chance to demonstrate framing the topics well, but also I wanna make sure that we get through the majority of step 4, which is brainstorming and developing solutions.
Wait, so are we not framing the dogs?
Yeah, we're doing dogs. You were doing dogs, right? You're doing dogs. I'm doing
okay.
dogs.
Yeah. Okay. I missed that just now.
Okay. All right. Alrighty. So we have our participants here. Emily Gilmore, played by Becky, and Mr. Ralph Furley, played by Atul, and Scene. This is where we begin to see. All right. So thank you for coming back from the break. As we mentioned before, we're moving into step 3 of the process, and you said you felt like everything that we needed to know, that Cawanna and I needed to know, we knew. And so in this step of the process, we want to make sure that we understand the specific things that have been part of the conflict and that you may want to make some decisions about. And so we're going to use this time to develop a list together and create a public list of the things that you would like to make decisions about. And when we have, when we're sure about what you want on the list, then we'll put them on, one by one onto a Google Doc that we can also share with you, okay? So Cawanna, did you want to go first? Would you like me to go first?
Sure, I'll go first.
Okay, all right, and I'll pull up the Google Doc and share the screen.
Okay, and so one thing that you all have had conflict about is the dogs. And Emily, you talked about with the dogs, just kind of looking for peace and quiet and having rest for your children. Is that right? And then Ralph, you talked about when it comes to the dogs. Wait, one moment. You were looking for autonomy and keeping up a routine. Is that right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so is dog something that we can list as being part of this conflict?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to share screen and we'll post that. All right, can everybody see the topics list?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry, I lost my cursor. Okay. And dogs. And I wanted to check in with you on the next topic, which was backyard. And I think, Ralph, I think for you, when it came to backyard, that you were looking for peace and quiet when it came to the backyard. And I think backyard included a few things we were talking about. When we're talking about the backyard, we're talking about the trash cans and the mice and just the physical space. And that you were looking for some ideas around the backyard. They got you assurances around peace and quiet and respect for the decisions that you've made for your backyard. And also that and that you're looking for like accountability for what's been happening, particularly around the mice when it comes to the backyard. Is that right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess I want to have a conversation about the noisy people on the deck. And then I want to have a conversation about like making sure that she doesn't stop putting, these dead mice on my side of the yard.
Mm-hmm. And I think I heard earlier, like feeling like attacked and bullied when it came to the decision about what was going on with the mice, and also like looking for the peace and quiet for yourself and for your dogs when it comes to what's happening with guests in the backyard. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, peace and quiet regarding the guests on the deck. And,
yeah.
I mean, the mice, I don't know that I would really call it like bullied. It's just like, I don't know why she's putting mice on my side of the property. It's like, there's just no need for that. So I'm not sure. It's not really bullied. It just kind of, I just don't think she should be intruding on my property.
Okay. So like respect for your boundaries and privacy.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going on her property, so she shouldn't really be going on my property.
All right. And I think for you, Emily, I think when it comes to backyard, that you were looking for ideas around the backyard that gets you being proactive about being proactive and clean conditions in the backyard was something that's important to you, and insurances in the backyard, looking for some insurance around your children and Cinnamon's safety when it comes to the backyard. Is that right?
Absolutely.
So is the backyard something to list as part of what's been going on in the conflict?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And Ralph, what about for you?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. I'm going to stop the share for a second, and I'm going to break the fourth wall right now to kind of talk about what you saw. So when we're framing topics, what we're using are the values and the feelings the participant discussed in step 2 to get to make sure that we understand what's important for them. So one of the things you heard us talk about in the question and answer segment is that when you're trying to make the decision to move from step 2 to step 3, I'm making sure that I have enough feelings and values per person, per topic, to be able to frame the topic when it comes to in step 3, and to be able to run the brainstorm, right? And so what I recommend are 4 unique values and 2 significant feelings per person, per topic. And that gives us enough to like frame that topic and to run a brainstorm on it, okay? And so I'll answer, if you have more questions about that, like jot your questions down, but I do want to make sure we get into the brainstorm, and we will be like stopping right at 3:30 so that we can have time to answer questions, okay? All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna pretend like we list all the topics, and we put some more topics up there. There was what? Communication. There's another topic. I think it was pretty much it. Dog's backyard. And you could just as easily, I chunked backyard, included trash cans and mice. And, guests. That was the other one. Okay. So that to me would be like a fuller topics list. Anything else you would have added on there, Cawanna?
Mm-mm.
And so
No.
how we always end step 3 is with this question. I'm read through the list. So we have dogs, backyard, communication, and guests. And Emily and Ralph, if you were to come to resolution on these topics, do you feel like your conflict would be resolved?
Yeah, I think so.
And okay, all right. And that, all right. And so when I get a yes to that answer, then I'm ready to move on to step 4 as a mediator. Okay. All right. Cawanna, we forgot to prep on how we want to do step 4. We're only going to brainstorm one topic. Would you like to type? Would you like me to type, or how would you like to?
If you can type, I can process map step 4.
All right, I'm on it. And okay, so you want
to? Okay. So now we're moving into step 4 of the process, which is the brainstorming phase. And this is where you all will look for solutions to the topics. Okay, and so in step 4, there are 4 stages to step 4. First is stage A, where you all will give us all of the ideas that you have about the topic. And I'm sorry, which topic are we starting with?
We haven't asked them yet.
Oh, okay. So first we're going to give you all, should we ask them first?
I usually do the breakdown of it and then I ask, so I would do like you were doing.
Okay. And so first you all are going to give us any ideas that you have for the topic without evaluating the ideas. And then in stage B, you're going to choose the ideas that you can get quick agreements to, which means you can pretty quickly agree to the idea, the way it's presented. And then in stage C, if there are ideas that may work with some tweaking and adjusting, then we'll go through those and tweak and adjust until you all may be able to agree on those. And then the ones that, and then there's stage D, which is where we get specifics on the ideas that you all have agreed to. Okay, so, and I want to make sure that we let you know that we'll be circling the ideas that you all can agree to. If they need tweaking and adjusting, wait, I'm sorry, we're in an online format. And so how are we doing it in the online format, Tracee?
That's a really, really good point. So let's map that out. So I was thinking agreed upon items. Hold on. Let me change this to 16 point, unbolded, underlined. So agreed upon items.
You want to highlight those?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I actually, if you don't mind, yeah, I'll highlight them. I'll highlight them and I'll highlight them green because those are good to go. And then items to be tweaked. Items to tweak. Still gonna highlight. And items to tweak, I can make yellow, like we need to come back to those. Is that okay? Is that okay for everyone?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right.
Wait, are you screen sharing now?
Oh, I forgot. I'm not screen sharing. I apologize.
Okay. No, I thought something was wrong with my system.
No, it was just me not sharing. I apologize. All right, can you see it now?
Okay, yes.
Okay. And All right. I'm not sure if that's how you spell tweak. I'm a good mediator, but I'm a bad speller.
TWEAK.
Okay. All right. So, and which topic did Emily and Ralph would you like to start with?
I'd like to talk about the guests.
Okay. And Emily, what are your thoughts about that?
That's fine.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna go with guests. Just a second. Okay. And what are all your ideas around guests?
I mean, I guess the things that are bothering me are like, it just gets so noisy at night on the weekends. So I guess I want some restriction or some sort of agreement as to like how late they can be out there making noise. And then I want to make sure that she can like make sure that her guests aren't like throwing cigarette butts onto my property.
All right, so there was a couple of things in there. So Emily, but guess I'm not throwing. And then Ralph, it sounded like you had like the beginnings of the idea around like how late the parties would happen. And what specific ideas did you have about like how late the parties would go?
Well, I mean, I go to bed at like 10, so it'd be great if like they could like stop making noise by 10.
Okay, and as the idea you're saying is like Emily has her guests stop making noise after 10.
Yeah.
Okay, what else?
I mean, it'd be great if she could like tell her guests to stop cursing. Like that's like, regardless of what time it is. Yeah, I don't tend to curse. I'm just kind of a quiet person, and it's not pleasant to be in my house and hearing people cursing.
And earlier, Emily, when we were talking about guests, I think making sure that guests have a good time was something that was important to you. What are ideas that you have to like to get to make sure that guests have a good time and that you get the peace and quiet that you're looking for, Ralph?
I mean, that's tough because, I'm not going to tell my family what they can or cannot say when they're at my house. But we could keep the volume down. Also, I think, when I do have family over, just to know that Ralph isn't, watching us or judging them. I think, like it's my deck and I can have people over if I want to.
I mean, that's what's kind of frustrating is like, that's like saying, well, if my dogs want to bark at 4 a.m, even though it's really to avoid her, then I should be able to do what I want to do on my property. How's that any different?
No.
And Cawanna, I feel like I missed a few items in there. Were you able to catch those?
Let me see. Emily avoids telling her family what they can and cannot say at her house. Emily and her guests keep the volume down. Emily has guests if she wants to. Let me see. Ralph lets his dog bark if he wants to. No, that was pretty much, those were the ideas that I heard as well. And let me see. The deck.
And I think something also, Ralph, that you talked about when it comes to guests was kind of like paying attention to the traditions of the neighborhood when it comes to guests. And can you say more between the two of you, like what ideas that you have, like to kind of recognize some of the traditions of the neighborhood when it comes to guests?
I mean, I don't know that it's really like I guess a tradition. I mean, just like, the neighbors that were there before, they didn't have a deck. I mean, Emily and her husband built this deck after they moved in. And so, I didn't really have to, I mean, the neighbors that were there before weren't noisy at all because they didn't really have a deck to have parties on. So, it's just the neighborhood just, it's like, she said like she wanted to move here because of like how great she'd heard the neighborhood was. Well, the neighborhood was great because it's a peaceful, quiet neighborhood where you generally don't have a lot of parties going on. People have generally been here a long time. So, I guess if you want to call it a tradition, I mean, it's a peaceful neighborhood and people don't tend to have loud parties on the weekends that run late into the night. So
maybe guests isn't a tradition, right? Maybe more is like the culture of the community.
I mean, people, like people might have, you might have people over, but it's, you might have dinner, you might have some conversation, but it's not like, you definitely don't see a lot of smoking and drinking in the neighborhood. And if you do, it's definitely not happening outside late at night. So it might be going on inside the house, but you just don't see that a lot in the neighborhood.
And so, Ralph, is the idea here that Emily does not allow her guests to drink and smoke on the deck?
I mean, like, I don't like to smoke or drink, but I'm not going to tell her that she shouldn't have it. I mean, if I had my pick, I'd rather have a neighbor that didn't have smoking and drinking going outside their house. But, it's like, in some sense, yeah, it's her property. So I'm not really going to, like tell her that, she can't do it. But I'm just saying that if you look at like the way the neighborhood was before they came, you just don't see that really happening a lot. And so, I guess, yeah, I mean, I guess she has that right. Like she was saying, it is her deck, but at the same time, it's like, maybe not on smoking and drinking, but certainly with the noise. Like if she calls, animal control on my dogs, well, I can call the police and say there's excessive noise going on late at night, but I don't do that. I mean, I could have done it, but I didn't.
Okay.
As far as like the cigarette butts, I guess I hadn't really thought about it because I don't smoke and neither does my husband. But you know, some of my family members do smoke, so I guess I could put out a few ashtrays on my deck just to have around. So if people are out there smoking, they can, you know, put their butts there.
And I think another thing that I heard from each of you is, Ralph, I think I heard you saying like looking for some more supervision about what was going on with guests, and Emily, I think I heard you saying like having a welcoming environment for your family and guests was something that was important to you. So what ideas do you have that would get both the welcoming environment and the supervision that you were looking for?
I mean, I don't want to make it sound like she needs to sit out there and like police, you know, like if she needs to go to sleep, I think it's like perfectly fine if she's like, you know, if she and her husband go to bed and her family's out there. I mean, that's, I don't want to make it sound like I'm being unreasonable about her. Like if I look out my window that she's got to be, you know, standing watch over them. But I think as long as they're not making a lot of noise or cursing, then it's fine wherever she is. I don't care whether she's out on the deck or inside. As long as there's not a lot of noise and cursing, then I'm fine. I'm fine if if her family is hanging out, quietly on the deck, but just, she doesn't need to be sitting right next to them or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, at a certain point, once it gets too late, I could, ask whoever I have over on the deck to move inside, so it'd be a little quieter. I mean, we're not going to be doing that like at 8:30 or anything. Like, we want to enjoy our time outside, but yeah.
And I'm fine, again, like if it's like a nice night out, I don't want her to have to force her guests to go inside. It just, if you're outside, most people, if they're going to have people over at night, they understand that it's late at night. There's people that are trying to sleep. I mean, kind of like, I'm sure she wouldn't want like a lot of noise, like with her kids trying to go to bed during the weekdays. It's not like I'm going to be like getting a drum set and kind of like banging on those either. So I think it's fine if there's guests outside. Like, again, I don't want her to have to move them inside automatically, but later you just don't create, you don't curse and talk loudly. It's just, you talk quieter.
And so for folks who are watching, I want you to know you would keep, checking in with more of the values, making, asking open-ended questions that we'd have long silences for while we're waiting for them to come up with more solutions. But I feel like we've got like a pretty decent list of ideas to like start the next stage of the process. What do you think, Cawanna?
Mm-hmm.
Like we got over, looks like we got over 10 items on here. So I'm gonna shift us. I'm gonna do an unnatural, uninclusive mediator shift, a trainer shift to the next stage of the process, so that we can demonstrate how we would how we would facilitate the picking stage of the process. So I'll start off.
So excited! Watch out! Vehicle stopped on road ahead.
Yeah, I feel that way too, Brenda, about mediation. Gets me worked up. So we're going to do a read through of that. So we have Emily makes sure that guests are not throwing cigarette butts in Ralph's yard. Emily has her guests stop making noise after 10 p.m. Emily tells her guests to stop cursing. Emily avoids telling her family what they can and cannot say at her house. Emily and her guests keep the volume down. Emily has guests if she wants to. Ralph lets his dog bark if he wants to. Emily avoids having smoking and drinking outside of the house. Outside of the house. I'm sorry, I lost where I was. Stop cursing. Emily tells her guests to stop cursing. Emily avoids telling her family what they can and cannot say at her house. Emily and her guests keep the volume down. Emily has guests if she wants to. Ralph lets his dogs bark if he wants to. Emily avoids having smoking and drinking outside of the house. Ralph avoids telling Emily what guests will do at her house. Emily calls animal control on Ralph's dogs. Ralph calls the police for noise control. Emily puts ashtray out for guests who smoke. Emily avoids policing guests. Ralph is reasonable about requests for guests. Emily avoids sitting next to guests. Emily asks guests to move inside once it gets late. Emily has guests have quiet conversations if they stay out late. Okay.
Okay, so which of those ideas can you all get quick agreement to?
Yeah, I think the putting ashtrays out, I think that's pretty simple. And I think that would, offer a pretty quick solution to that problem. I don't know what you think, Ralph, but.
And that's this idea right here that I'm highlighting.
Yeah, I mean, if there's not, I didn't know whether they were out there or not, but I guess if they're not out there, I guess that makes sense that might be why they're tossing them over. So yeah, I mean, that would be great if she could, put them out there and the guests use them.
Okay. Oh, shoot. Okay.
Trying to get her Furley.
What else?
I mean, I'd like to. I mean, I think it was like earlier on talking about the noise levels. So, I mean, I'd like it to have like maybe by 10 o'clock, if we sort of agree that there's not really going to be, it's not going to be noisy outside. So whether that means that Emily asks people to go inside, or whether she asks them to kind of be quieter, but some way of making sure that past 10 there isn't really any noise outside.
Okay. And I wasn't sure, there was a couple ideas I think you referenced. I think maybe this one here was one of them, Ralph, and there was another one about guests going inside.
Yeah, I mean, I won't tell her, like that one where it says that I won't tell her what she can do at her house. I mean, it's really, I guess my main concern is the noise level. So, whether she asks people to go inside or asks them to quiet down at 10, I guess for me, the solution would be just making sure that after 10 o'clock, that there's not really noise going on outside.
Okay, and what are your thoughts? I'm going to check in. I think, was this one that I've highlighted? Is that one of the ideas you're referencing? Emily,
that's the one.
Emily, what are your thoughts about this one?
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. I think, yeah, I feel like most of the time we're pretty quiet by 10 anyway, but I can make sure that they're rather quieted down or that they move inside past 10.
Okay. And so this is ask us to move inside once it gets late. and is late. We're saying 10.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And Ralph, what are your thoughts about this one?
Yeah, and again, I mean, it's like, again, she doesn't have to have them go inside, just if they want to stay outside, but more so they're like, if they're out past 10, then just they have like the one below that they have quiet conversations if they stay out past 10.
Okay. All right. And what else do you feel like you can come to quick agreement on?
I mean, I feel like at least for me, like the big issues were really just making sure that, you know, the cigarette butts are gone and that it's quiet out there, you know, by 10. So I don't know that there's, I mean, I guess, yeah, I guess, you know, I guess I would like to be able to also, well, let me see what else is on here. Actually, yeah, that's fine. Actually, those two are fine.
Well, I want to check in because earlier I think I heard you saying that you were feeling offended by some of the language used in the backyard by guests, and or we're looking for language that like kind of sits in with the culture of the neighborhood more. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, it's yeah, I guess regardless of what time it is, I don't know that I necessarily like to hear cursing. I don't really know. Mm-hmm. I'm guessing the neighbors don't like it either, but then again, they don't really have to hear it because they're not right next door. But I mean, I don't know. Like I would have thought like Emily's got kids, and I guess I would think that, you know, I would think that she wouldn't want them hearing that either. So I don't know. I guess, yeah, it would be great if, I don't really know how you police that. Like, you know, just, I don't know. I don't want to be like, oh, her telling him that the neighbor doesn't want to hear it, but like maybe just like, hey, I have kids. She could say like, she has kids. Like I'm sure she wouldn't want her guests cursing where her kids could hear it, right? I mean, I don't want to be the bad guy for policing what her guests say, but it would just seem that she wouldn't want her kids to hear that either.
So, and is that this one here that I have highlighted in blue?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Emily, what are your thoughts about that one?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I don't want to be, I'm not going to tell my family they can't curse and that they can't use the words that they want to. That's just not the rules of my house. Like, I want people to be able to express themselves. So yeah, I don't think I'm not going to ask my guests not to curse. I don't think there's much cursing going on that I hear, at least when I'm around and when my kids are around. But I could at least just try to keep the volume down. So if there's any language that is offensive to anyone, it wouldn't be easily heard. But yeah, I'm not going to ask that of my family.
Okay, and so the other idea I think I did hear you offer was Emily and her guests keep the volume down. Is that right? And yeah. And Ralph, what are your thoughts about that one?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I kind of just figured that was the same as like they're going to stop making noise by 10 p.m. So, yeah, I guess as I think about it, I'm kind of like, I just kind of want to get to bed at a reasonable hour and be able to sleep. So, as long as like, it's kind of the same thing. As long as she and her guests keep the volume down after 10, like I'm good. Yeah, I think with the cursing, I mean, I guess, we'll just see how it goes. I mean, I honestly, if it bothers me, but if she's fine with her kids hearing it and is not bothered by it, then I guess, I don't know there's much I can say or do about it.
Okay. And so it sounds like feeling flexible around that and prioritizing having peace and quiet after 10 o'clock. Is that right? And the idea around cursing, we've kind of put in yellow as an idea to come back to and check in about. And I want to check to see, are there other ideas on here you feel like you can both easily agree to?
I mean, I feel like the ones you've highlighted, I don't know, like a lot of the other stuff just kind of seems like it kind of falls under the other stuff. So I kind of feel, I don't know, from my perspective, I'm like, as long as the ashtrays are out there and there's no noise after 10, I mean, I feel like I'm pretty comfortable, like kind of seeing how that goes. Like, I think that'll alleviate most of my concerns about, you know, the two primary issues with the guests.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know anything, nothing else really jumps out at me as like, oh, you know, we have to really talk about it.
And Emily, what about for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, if those were his main problems with us having people over and this is going to solve it, I think that's fine. And my only other thing is, as long as I do stick to that he will kind of drop it. And, you know, I don't want to feel like he's constantly bringing up just the fact that I have people over.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And, okay. And so like, it sounded like you felt, badgered with how communication around guests was going. Is that right?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
I mean, I'd like to have I guess what would be great is like, yeah, I mean, I know she doesn't want to hear, like, I mean, it might be good. Like, maybe if we just have a check-in every now and then about like, how is it going in terms of like, you know, I don't want to be the bad guy coming over if I see a cigarette butt on my property and then her being like, oh, I'm like badgering her. Or if there's noise going on at 11 o'clock, I don't want to be the guy that's like having to go over and be like the bad guy or anything. It's like, I just feel like if there was like a better way for us to just like kind of check in and be like, okay, how's it, you know, like, how's it going with regard to the cigarette butts, or how's it going with regard to the noise? Maybe like a regular kind of check-in would be great. And that way it wouldn't be like, you know, my having to go over at midnight, or just like kind of every time she sees me, have it be like, oh no, now what?
And I want to check in with you, Cawanna. Anything else you want to check in about?
Well, there was this new idea that Ralph had about having regular check-in meetings.
Thank you.
About how things are going.
Okay. And did I capture that idea?
Yeah, I mean, just kind of a neighborly conversation, kind of about, you know, yeah, how are things going?
Okay. And Emily, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be great. I'd be able to communicate and just check in with each other. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. So for the observers on this call and elsewhere, we would keep checking in on the values that they had said to make sure that all the values that they had around this topic, they had ideas around that, and that they were being either captured in green or in yellow. And the next step in the process is going to be somebody's got some extra noise going on. It's usually not me. So if everybody could mute yourselves. All right. The next stage in the process is the brainstorm is stage A, capturing all the ideas, right? Stage B is picking the ideas, which we just finished. The ones that they have consensus on, we've highlighted in green. The ones that they do not, we have in yellow. So we have one yellow item. And so we're going into stage C, which is tweaking and adjusting. All right. And so we're going to go back and we're going to check in on the one highlighted in yellow and to see if there are any other items that they feel like could work with some adjustment. All right. So the next stage of this process, I want to check in on the idea. Emily tells her guests to stop cursing, and Ralph, I think that something that you liked about this idea was that it kind of earlier you were feeling offended about some of the language that was being used by guests, and also kind of concerned about like the impact on Emily's children as well. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
And Emily, can you talk about what your reluctance around this idea was?
Yeah, I just, you know, when my family come over, you know, I'm really close to my family, and I don't want to tell them, you know, what they can and cannot say. You know, maybe the language they use is offensive to some people, but it's not to me, and it's my family. So, you know, I don't want them to feel like when they come over, they have a whole list of rules that they have to follow at my house. So yeah, that's just not really something I really feel comfortable in doing, is asking them to, you know, change their language when they're at my house.
So looking for kind of carefree communication and kind of respecting your family's boundaries is something that's important to you. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so what I did is, I'm sorry, did I cut you off, Ralph?
Yeah, I mean, I totally get where Emily is coming from. I mean, like, if you have family over, you don't want to be like, hey, mom, dad, you know, you can't say that or anything. But I guess what I would just ask her to consider is, like, let's say I was outside in the daytime and her kids were playing out in the yard and I'm swearing up a storm and it doesn't bother me. Like, I'm guessing that would bother her, and she probably wouldn't want me doing that. So I guess I just would like her to consider that even though it doesn't bother her, it bothers me. And so again, if she's fine with her parents cursing outside, then it shouldn't be an issue if I'm cursing in the daytime when her kids are out.
So like looking for consideration and mutual consideration when it comes to language used outside. Is that right?
Yeah, I get where she's coming from, but I'm just want her to kind of consider, like if you sort of flip it around, like, I'm guessing she would be offended if I were swearing up a storm when her kids were outside in the yard. And I wouldn't do that because I understand her kids are outside and it wouldn't be appropriate. So I'm just asking her to consider that maybe it's not appropriate on the other side.
And so what ideas do the two of you have that would get both the respect for guest boundaries and also would get the appropriateness that you're looking for around, like ways that this idea could be adjusted so it would keep the appropriateness around language that you're looking for, Ralph, but also get, you know, like the respect for the boundaries of your guests that you're looking for in Emily.
Yeah, I mean, that's really is a tough one. I guess my only thought is that by keeping our talking volume down, if there is cursing, Ralph wouldn't hear it. But I don't really know what more we could do.
And what are your thoughts about that, Ralph?
Well, I mean, I guess I have a question. I mean, I'm just trying to get a sense of, like, I guess I'm sort of surprised that, I mean, I totally get, like, who wants to tell their parents that they can't curse, but I guess I'm not clear whether Emily, it's that she doesn't want to tell her parents not to say it, or that she's just not bothered by it. But I guess my question is like, if I said the same things that your parents are saying in the daytime when your kids are playing outside in the yard in a loud voice, you're not bothered by that? Like, you're totally okay with that?
Well, yeah, I mean, no, I like, I feel like you keep making assumptions about my parenting of what my kids are around. My kids might hear some cursing, whether coming from me or my husband or the TV. They've heard it. They know those words. They don't use them, but they know them. So no, I mean, if they heard anyone saying those words, they're used to that. They can handle that. So no, it wouldn't really bother me. But yeah, I'm not gonna, tell my guests what they can and cannot do.
No, I mean, I'm fine with that. I guess I just wanted to make sure I understood whether, like kind of where you were on that. And again, not going to impose like my value of cursing or not cursing on you, but I guess so I know that if I do the same thing on my side of the property, that it shouldn't be an issue because the kids are fine with it and you're fine with it.
And so for you, Ralph, like having consistency about the kind of the attitudes around language, having consistency about how that attitude happens on both sides of the fence. Is that right?
Yeah. I guess I just want it to be fair that if I am not supposed to have a problem with her parents cursing on the deck, that it shouldn't be an issue if I or my guests were to curse on my side of the property, that she won't have an issue with it either because it doesn't seem to bother her.
All right, and so it sounds like you're able to leave this one unagreed upon. Like this idea won't go into the agreement. Is that what I'm hearing? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it needs to be. I mean, I guess, yeah, I feel fine as long as I understand that she doesn't have a problem with it. Then she won't have a problem with it if she hears it from my side of the property during the daytime.
Okay. And Cawanna, I just want to check to see, were there any new ideas that I missed in that?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. All right. And for the viewing audience, I would, so this idea, they were not, there wasn't any tweaking. It felt like the ideas that they had kind of addressed it. And plus there was this new awareness around that kind of satisfied, the need for putting that in the agreement. But if oftentimes what'll happen with that is like additional ideas will come up and I put them in. A question that I hear a lot is, do I add it to the end of that idea? Do I put it at the bottom of the list of ideas or what have you? And my answer is whatever works for you, okay? As long as the ideas are captured, I'm fine with however it happens, okay? So with that, I'm gonna move us into getting details for the ones that they've agreed upon. So we're moving into the
Stage D.
Stage D of the brainstorm, which is capturing details. And we just kind of go through the ones that you have agreed to. So we have Emily has her guests stop making noise at 10 p.m. What details do you feel like you need in order to be able to implement that idea?
I mean, okay, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I mean for this one, by 10, we can move inside. Sometimes we play music, so the music can stop by 10.
Okay, so I've added Emily has her guests stop making noise at 10 p.m. and then her guests move inside by 10 p.m. and the music is cut off by 10 p.m. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And when would you begin implementing that?
That can start today. I'm probably having family over like next weekend, so yeah, that can start then.
You're saying starting by this weekend, you said?
Yeah.
What is that date? What's that? The 10th? Okay. Anything else you feel like, any questions you had, Cawanna, all around details on that one?
No.
All right. And, all right. And the next one, Emily and her guests keep the volume down. What details do you feel like you need for that?
I mean, I think that's kind of covered by the one we just talked about, right?
Okay.
Like,
And Emily, what do you think about that? Okay.
Yeah.
And then we have Emily puts ashtrays out for guests who smoke. What details do you need for that?
Yeah, I mean, I can go to the store this week and pick up some ashtrays. So.
Anything else? No. And that would, you're saying this week, so that would happen by when?
I could have them before the weekend, so by was it the 10th, I think?
Okay. All right. And Emily asked us to move inside once it gets late. Any details you need for that one?
I think, was that covered above? Did we talk about that? I thought, okay. I'm not sure.
Okay, that feels covered. Does that feel covered by this one you're saying?
I mean, I think, yeah, it says Emily and her guests move inside by 10 and cut off the music by 10. So it seems like, I think it's kind of covered.
Okay. And Ralph and Emily have regular check-in meetings about how things are going. I'm sorry, I put a question mark there. I apologize. And what details do you feel like you need to be able to implement that?
I think probably just like kind of like who initiates, you know, and then when we meet, and just kind of an expectation of like how that's going to work. So, you know, like, I don't know, maybe, I don't know if we need it to be real formal. I feel kind of weird, like having it be this like structured meeting or something. Like, how about like, maybe instead of like that, maybe, let me think. Maybe like the first, I don't know. I'm just trying to think of like what would really be, maybe like for the first four Mondays afterwards, I don't know, maybe we do need some structure around it. So maybe like Monday morning for the first 4 weekends after we do this, like, you know, I'll knock on her door with some cupcakes and like, you know, kind of just check in, and we'll just have kind of a nice little conversation over cupcakes about kind of, you know, how the weekend was, maybe something like that.
Yeah, we'll take your cupcakes for sure. You could bring the dogs too, so the dogs could spend time together.
Mo and Bella and Brownie would enjoy hanging out with Cinnamon. Mm-hmm. So I guess, yeah, so maybe like 4 play dates for us to eat cupcakes and for the dogs to kind of hang out in the yard. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And Emily, what do you think about these ideas?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's great. I think it probably definitely need to be in the afternoons once the kids are done with school. But yeah, that would be great.
And what time were you thinking, Ralph?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, like whenever Emily says, like if the kids get home, I'm guessing probably like 3 or 4. So honestly, I'm home most of the day. So whenever kind of works. Honestly, if she just wants to pop outside and kind of, you know, I'm in the yard a lot anyways with the dog. So, you know, either she can, I don't know, do you want to set a time, Emily? Like in terms of the kids are home at a specific time, I can come over after that, or what works for you?
Yeah, I think 4 would be fine. We should have plenty of time to make it home and things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So the idea is Ralph and Emily have regular check-in meetings about how things are going. They meet on the first 4 Mondays. Ralph knocks on the door with cupcakes. Ralph brings Bella, Mo, and Brownie with him to play with Cinnamon. And this will happen in the afternoons when the kids get home from work at 4 p.m. Does that work?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. Let's end the scene right there. Cawanna, anything you would say about that? Did I miss anything?
And I know they said something about just meeting out on the deck.
Oh, yeah,
like,
yeah.
Like I wanted to check in to see.
Okay, yeah. So that would be captured as like what do you think about that idea?
Yeah, I mean, I like it. It'd be kind of nice to enjoy the deck from the other side.
It works for you? Okay. All right. All right. Thank you, Cawanna.
We have to check in with Emily.
Emily, I'm sorry. Emily, did that work for you? I apologize. Thank you.
No, that's great.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Cawanna.
Mm-hmm.
Keeping me honest. Where is the chat? Okay. All right, so anybody can look at that. Whew, that's hard work, y'all. How are y'all doing? Oh, let's de-roll and thank our participants. Participants, let the world know you are not whoever that was.
I am not Emily Gilmore.
I am not Ralph Furley.
I am, and say your real name.
I am Atul Garg, a mediator.
There you go, very good.
And I'm Becky Hay, who loves cats.
And that's something we have in common. We like cats.
And the rest of us tell them, thanks for the learning.
Thanks for the learning.
Thank you for the learning.
Thank you for the learning.
And to my most excellent co-mediator, Cawanna. Cawanna, I want us to demonstrate feedback, if you don't mind.
Okay.
But before we do that, if all of us would let her know we are not worthy.
We are not worthy. Not worthy.
Not worthy.
So let's say we're doing
Wait a minute, Tracee. We're not worthy of you either.
Oh,
at all.
Tracee, we are not worthy. I'm trying to tell you, we are not worthy.
I'm nervous because I got this new yoga chair, and I'm tempted to bounce on the ball all the time.
That's what Jerry does.
So I was wondering, like, if y'all saw me bouncing all the time. So let Cawanna, let's do feedback real quick with each other, and then we will bring everybody in for questions and stuff.
Okay.
You want to go first? You want me to go first? You want to roll Shambo?
You go first.
Okay. All right. Pluses for myself. I think in step 2, after I did the first reflection, I think I did a good job of making space for you to come in and add, and you brought in a great reflection and an excellent open-ended question. I think I did a good job of doing well-rounded reflections that captured not just the things that they were complaining about, but the things that they were happy about. So like not just you felt disappointed with what's going on in communication, but also that you felt impressed with the neighborhood that you moved into, you know, that kind of thing. I think I did a good job of framing backyard and like capturing some of the new values that Atul's character brought into that, and like incorporating that into the frame.
Okay.
And I didn't completely, because Brainstorm wears me out, so I didn't completely conk out.
Yeah.
stop the recording and go take a nap. I stuck with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that yeah, you did an excellent job with the you know, your reflections are always spot on. So you did a really good job with those. Just catching all of the nuances of what they were saying. And I'm sorry, I wrote some down here. You talked about feeling shocked about the decision with like the deck and stuff, and feeling ignored and dictated to, and things like that. You had just everything that you know, all of your reflections were absolutely awesome. Yeah, your framing of the topics, you did a really good job. You also, I'm sorry, let me go back to step 2, because you did a good job in helping me out. There were a lot of times when I felt stuck, and you know, because I have a hard time with note taking, just helping me out when I couldn't figure out exactly what the word was I wanted to say. But you know, you were always there to kind of help out with that. And once again, your framing of topics was excellent in helping the participants to remind them exactly what was important for them for each topic. And I think you did an awesome job in step 4 as well. Just you know, you captured most of the ideas. I'll say that. Okay.
Thank you. Deltas for myself. So one, not completing our prep together. So I didn't make plans for how we would do step 4 together. And so we were just kind of in it. And also, there were several times I'm rushing the process a little bit in brainstorming and forgetting to go back. And I was really grateful for you for going back and capturing, making sure we had consensus amongst them around ideas, and that new ideas were being captured. And just, you know, in terms of Zoom mediation, I still cannot resist looking at the picture and not at the camera. So people like, so I can see I'm looking, this is what I feel like looking at a tool looks like, as opposed to this, you know? Because on my screen, this is where you are at Tool. I'm looking straight at you. You know, we have eye-to-eye contact as far as I'm concerned right now. But in fact, you probably feel more like I'm looking at you right now, and that's weird. I have not, you know, in 9 months, I still haven't made that adjustment.
Okay. So that's probably gonna be one for me too, because I had never even thought of that. But
Erica Bridgeford gave me that feedback.
Okay. Deltas for you. Let me think. they were few and far between. I guess there might have been like a minor detail missed in the step 4 of it. I mean, if I'm forced to say something.
Well, it could be that I got you to do this at the very last minute, as well as the tool, as well as, you know. Kelly probably has more feedback than I haven't been the one that had to coordinate this with me.
And so, yeah, that's all I would say.
Okay, thank you. And for you?
And let me see.
The pluses for you?
My pluses. I showed up. I think, yeah. I did that. And you know, let me see. I don't know. I think my communication with my co was good. I had a couple of reflections that I thought were good, that they landed well with participants, and I think I was helpful in the brainstorming and being supportive during the brainstorming to you.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I echo most of what you said. I feel like you have a lot of strong pluses. So the plus I gave for myself and like bringing you in after the first reflection, I think was brilliant on my part, because you came in with a really relevant feelings that I had not captured, like feeling exasperated with what was going on. And you asked a spot on highly relevant, open-ended question. Like when you said, like she's being nasty, tell me what you mean by that. Like that opened up a lot of new information, but also capturing the feelings of being controlled. And I think the majority of the open-ended questions that opened up a lot of information came from you. Like the question about nasty, what was the neighborhood like previous to Emily moving in, maintaining beauty and feeling frightened about what's happening with the mice, rats, rodents. Process mapping on neutrality. So this was one of the things that I think Asia had said really helped her. That when Atul's character was like trying to get your validation, you reflected that and you responded and process map why it is that you're not going to be able to give validation or not give validation. And fortified our neutrality in that, reflecting peace of mind. The question you asked about building the deck, and and this was really helpful. After I asked the open-ended question about the dogs and the tools character saying, you know, like when they're hurt, I'm hurt, and you came back and reflected feeling heartbroken, like that was really significant and useful. And just throughout the process, the transparency that you were able to co-model with me, I think that was really helpful for everybody's learning. So like just good as a mediator in general, but extra so in this role as modeling how we want the kind of transparency we want as co-mediators. So I felt very well coded and supported in this process.
Oh, thank you.
Deltas
and my deltas. I definitely give myself a delta for coming back late after lunch. And I think that we missed some valuable time we could have used to plan out like step 4 and stuff like that. And I don't know, as in around step 4, I kind of felt like I was spectating at the table. I left you to do a lot of the heavy liftings, and it was probably, afternoon fatigue, because I could feel myself zoning out, and it was just kind of like, And, you know, and I could feel myself coming back. And then luckily, you know, I was able to catch up and re-engage, but I definitely felt that. Let me see. You know, I'm going to give myself a Delta for, as I said, my note taking. Just my notes are everywhere, so it's really hard to follow. And that's all I got so far.
Okay. I think my Delta for you is I need you to remember, like, when I know you came, I can't thank you enough, like, you came to this last minute. Like, I called you, and when you answered the phone, I didn't say hello or Happy New Year. I was like, help. And and you signed on to do this, and you were the first person I called because you are a strong mediator. So I'm gonna tell a quick narrative about Cawanna. When she showed up for her performance-based evaluation, just how she walked in, I knew that she was going to get certified at the highest level. I was like, that's what a 6 walks like. Anyway, and so I just need you to bring that, because I feel like you're being overly critical of yourself. Because I think you perform well on this call, and consistently in mediation, I feel like you perform well. And I think it's okay to do that. And I think particularly as you, just FYI, since she's been certified at the highest level, she has been going through her apprenticeship to become an evaluator. And so I want you to bring that kind of confidence, but without the overly criticalness to the evaluation process. And I put that as a warning to everybody else. You should go get certified before Eric Cawanna becomes an evaluator.
Yeah, I'm not just overly critical on myself.
Yeah. So yeah, hurry up. Send me your applications. So all right. So the rest of the time is for you. We have 30 minutes. What questions, comments, concerns do you all have?
Okay, well, I just, as usual, every time I observe, but especially you two, I can't believe how naturally. It's a little bit daunting for someone who's a beginner like myself to see that natural flow. And I'm always just so impressed, but I was really impressed with you made it feel more like a conversation. You know, it's a really highly functional, highly organized conversation. It was a bit unique from all of my other observations. Yeah, I couldn't possibly consider finding any deltas. I'm sure that you probably think you had deltas, and I'm sure you're right. But yeah, I just gotta say that you guys get all the snaps.
Thank you. And,
thank you.
And you know, and I would say I totally get that. I remember being in my basic training. I remember watching Erica Bridgeford and Caroline Harmon Darrow like reflect and ask open-ended questions and being like, oh, that's great. I too would like to do that, you know, and I was fortunate that, you know, that I had the time to invest, to develop the skills and what have you. And it's really just, it's about getting to the table a lot, you know. So I was, you know, when I first started mediating, it wasn't like it is now. Like there was like now it's like we are constantly trying to get mediators on the case. When I first started mediating, it was a competitive process to get onto a case.
Okay.
And so I had to get a job at the organization to make sure I had enough cases to. And then right at that time, in Baltimore City, the partnership with the state's attorneys came along, and then that wasn't the situation anymore. There were lots of cases for people to get onto. But yeah, just make sure that you're getting to the table and you're sticking to the process. And I know a lot of times people veer from the process because they're like, I don't know how to get them what they need using the process, you know. But just stick to it and just be transparent. It's like, you know, you can say when you're stuck, when you're not sure how to do what they need done. Okay. And then you can ask their center to support you on that, and feel free to call me. I'll make sure I put my phone number in the chat again. Give me a call. I love to hear from mediators. People in my house love it when I hear from mediators because they get tired of hearing me. They get tired of talking about mediation.
Hey, Tracee, this is not a delta or anything. Can I ask a question off of the deltas? Because I know doing the training stuff with communication, I still struggle with that sometimes because I know when it's a value and in this place or topic. And I think you guys used it as a topic, right?
Right.
But you said there were times when it was, so is it a way that you know automatically that communication is not like a value?
Right. So the question is, when they're talking about communication, I'm going to ask myself, communication about what? Right. So wait, let me back up even before that. So when the communication first pops up in my head, I want to make sure that's something that's coming from them and not from me. Right. So are they talking about how they are talking? Right. And they jumped off by saying, way she talked, you know, he ignores me, he's rude, she's nasty, and she's disrespectful, right? And so they are talking about how they're talking. So it's not like I'm sitting here looking at how they're dealing with each other, and I'm like, they have a communication problem. That wasn't coming from me. That was coming from them. Okay. So first, make sure it's coming from them, right? Then I'm gonna ask myself, communication about what? Right? So if it's communication about the dogs, if it's communication about the children, if it's then those things are going to be closer to the topic than communication is. But they were saying so there was some piece of it that was communication about the dogs and the communication about guests, but there also was this piece about just how we talk to each other. Like, I'm feeling harassed by just how she talks in general. Right. And he's saying, I'm feeling ignored by how he doesn't talk in general. So that's how I get communication. So if I say communication about what, and I still come to like how they're talking, then the topic's communication. But if I say communication about what, and I have an answer, then that answer is going to be closer to the topic than communication is. Is that helpful?
Yeah, that's helpful. But couldn't, in that instance, like communication be like, is it something like, it seems like communication is important to you? Could that be a value though? That's what I'm saying.
Was going to be one of the topics, right?
Yeah. If we had gone through like a regular mediation, communication, I would have checked in if it was a topic they wanted to have listed.
Okay. And that would be about how they communicate to each other in general.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it looked like some of that they were resolving. Like, I would bet if communication wasn't the next topic that they brainstormed, I bet you a lot of the details about communication would have gotten taken care of in the other topics.
Tracee?
Cupcakes go a long way with helping communication, I think. I heard my name.
It was me.
Oh, hey, Jess.
Hey. So I've been thinking about what you were saying about needing the two feelings, the 4 values around one topic per person. And so I was wondering if you would, because I'm doing a lot of intakes.
Right.
Wondering if you would recommend me playing around with my notes after an intake and playing with making sure I have those, I guess, as practice, and also maybe practicing on how I would write that note.
I would say yes and no.
Okay.
So part of intake, we do want to be introducing them to into inclusive listening. We want them to be introduced by us to inclusive listening when we're doing intake.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not going to be as thorough because there's this other piece about we're doing case management that you are that you're also kind of pitching the process to them, and you're educating them about the process. So your reflections and your information gathering is far more succinct. So you're not doing a thorough step 2.
Okay.
And on those times when you have those people that, like, you know, when you ask them, you know, like how they would like to use mediation, and they start with, I was born very young. And you start, when you have those people, might as well practice. You might as well practice, you know, like they're going to tell you, know, they're going to start talking from, you know, the Mesozoic age.
Mm-hmm. I did one the other night, girl.
Yeah, so that's a good one to start practicing your note taking again. Yeah, go ahead. But you don't want to push that on your other participants, because if you do that, then when they get to the mediation table and be like, I already told all this shit to Jess, right? You know, that other person who started with I was born very young can't wait to tell it again. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So you don't have to worry about that. But you don't
so I'm not trying to get them too in detail.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. You don't want to run a solo mediation process. You want to, you know, like you want to get enough so they get a taste of how sweet having your feelings, values reflected to you is, right? So you get a little hooked on it, and then you start explaining the process to them.
Okay. I think I've been doing that. Maybe you should watch me one day do an intake.
Okay. All right.
I could possibly be taking it too far. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. And I promise you, Jerry's a much better resource, but if you want me, I'm there.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Thank you, Tracee.
Okay. No problem. Yeah. I love talking about all things at the mediation table. I'm willing to talk about all things in terms of mediation coordination, but to the extent it's helpful. But Jerry Thomas is a much better reference point than I am on mediation coordination. Does everybody know Jerry Thomas? Jerry Thomas works out of the Baltimore City office. She's also Erica Bridgeford's mom. She's like, you know, she's like the part of Erica that's good.
That's funny.
What else? I love thinking about how many people are gonna watch this video who don't know Erica. I'm like, why she talk so much smack about this woman? It's fun. It's just fun.
Tracee.
And I'm sure you said much shit about me. Hey, Robin.
Hi, I have a question for both of you.
Yes.
How do you work to make sure that during the brainstorming, it's not just one participant, you know, what that you give a voice to both? Do you know that one person just doesn't come up with all of the ideas? Because so you don't get into one person doing who's going to be doing all the work, all the, Emily will do this, Emily will do the Emily's. How do you make sure that doesn't happen?
Well, my strategy is, we start off with asking what are all of the ideas, and then they'll say a few and say that's it. And they'll say a few and then we'll say what else. And then when they say that's all I got, we'll ask one person, you said you had this value. What ideas do you both have to get this value, right? And then we'll ask the other person, you said you had this value. What ideas do you have to get this value? And then we'll do, Tracee did several win-win knits where, you said you wanted this value and you said you wanted this value. What ideas do you both have to get both of these values? So we're kind of cycling in and out of those strategies.
I get that, but what do you do when that sometimes doesn't happen? Where one may be passive and doesn't really, oh, whatever he says, you know, I agree, or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, our work then is not to judge that situation. Right. So, and it just like that might just be the reality. So remember that in mediation, we provide a neutral process, which is not the same as providing a fair process. Fair and neutrality are two different things. So if they value fairness and they're like, both of us need to be contributing to on this topic, then, you know, like we'll ask them, what are all the ideas that would get you fairness on how this topic is dealt with? But I could see like if we, and this is why I wish, you know, we had more time and I had more energy and we could brainstorm 2 topics, because I bet you, like with guests, a lot of the ideas were about things that Emily was going to do. And if we had also brainstormed dogs, we probably would have seen a lot of the ideas were things that Ralph was going to do. So, and you would see some more of the balance in them doing it. And if not, like I have to just, you know, I have to engage my every time I hear the word engage, I think of abs. I'm thinking about all the workout videos I've done. And I stood up straighter when I say engage our neutrality muscles, because, you know, we're looking like, damn it, Emily's doing all the work. That's not fair, you know, but it's like fairness is our value. It's not necessarily their value. And it might not be fairness might not be the value that gets them out of the situation.
And we're also going to be checking for facial expressions and body language, just to see if something is happening for a person. And, you know, sometimes that works to check in with them about that.
Okay. Is that helpful, Robin?
Yes, thank you.
That's a good question. Because I mean, like this, you know, this whole neutrality game is hard work. And a lot of times when we're at the mediation table, participants, you know, unknowingly and occasionally knowingly stomp on our values. Like, and, you know, and you have to sit there and you're kind of, you know, that's why we give you these, what seem like to a lot of people, like over the top role plays in your training. But, you know, those role plays are based off of actual conflicts that have been mediated by community mediation. And a lot of times when people are doing mediation for a while, they'll say, y'all downplayed it. Yeah. But, you know, like we want you to get accustomed to the sensation of your values being kind of tripped on, so you can feel you engaging your neutrality muscles in real time at the mediations in the role play, so that when it happens at the mediation table, you're familiar with the work that you have to do to sustain your neutrality. Okay. Other thoughts, questions, concerns?
Something I thought about, like, as we were going through the brainstorm, just how long and like tedious that can be. And so, like, even as like a role player who I knew what to expect, like it still felt really just long. And so, like, are there ways to keep participants like encouraged and like engaged? I mean, besides like checking in and asking questions, like, I don't know, how do you kind of keep them along in that process?
Twofold, you know, I encourage cheerleading at the table and mediation, you know, and just I want to be real clear when I say cheerleading, I'm cheerleading the quantity of work that they've done, not the quality of the work that they've done, right? So I'm saying you've done a lot today. You've gotten a lot of solutions, right? And like, I'm not saying you've got some good solutions, but just there's a good volume of ideas and you've done a lot of work, you know, even if nothing's written, like if they've gotten, you know, like if they sat at the table for 2 hours talking to each other when they hadn't talked to each other in 2 weeks or 2 years or 2 decades, then that's a lot of work. So I want to cheerlead that, right? And something I'm working on language. So you guys are going to be the first time I roll this out. but I'm really working on empowering and mediators to be comfortable kind of making the call on, okay, that's enough. You know what I'm saying? Like, we schedule these for 2 hours, but if you feel like an hour and 35 minutes is as productive as everybody can be on Zoom, I want you to pay attention to that and make the call and say, I wonder if we might need to reschedule for another session at this point. Because I mean, you know, because just Zoom is the fatigue of working on Zoom is real. And so you can, you know, give yourselves and your participants and co-media a break. And I think that's something that we, I wish I had thought to model that conversation with Cawanna, like, but I think that's something we should be talking about when we're prepping, like, how do we make that call? Because I know, like, I frankly have been having to schedule separate sessions to do feedback because I find like I don't have anything left to give on Zoom after I do the mediation, and so I have to do the feedback at a separate time. So I want people to be very mindful of doing that in a way that's respectful of all the work that happened to get everybody to the mediation table, but also respectful of what I call our collaborative energy, you know? And so once people, you know, once you feel like everybody's collaborative energy, their collaborative stamina has been spent, that we, you know, that we pay attention to that and we call to reschedule. And when we do that, we want to make sure that it's not like set up as like, this isn't it's y'all's fault. We could have kept going, but y'all seem tired. No, that we take responsibility for that call, and, you know, and just like, well, you know, a lot of work has been done at this point, and I wonder if we're scheduled to go to 4 o'clock, and I wonder what you'll think about, like, kind of cutting time right now and scheduling for a next session. Okay.
Well, it's only 9 minutes before 4 o'clock anyway, Trey.
I have a question.
Trey, don't act like you doing us like we finished an hour early or something.
I'm talking about in mediation, not right now.
Oh yeah, we can come back.
Sherry, I'm mad at you, Sherry.
Tracy's like, okay.
It's a mediation, not right now.
Tracee, I wonder, because I've never seen a real situation. I've only been in role play or watched this. So when you have real people, is the energy level stay up maybe a little bit more because it's real life, as opposed to sometimes as role players, you're stretching to try to, you don't know the whole story. You're not really that person. So I'm wondering if that's a bit tedious because we're role playing.
Yes and no. Like, you know, some of y'all are like consummate role players, and y'all, you know, like y'all get into the characters, and I feel like y'all embody the conflict of it. And then some, you know, and there's some situations like you wouldn't even know to role play it, you know, like so like at a role play, you can say to yourself, I'm practicing, these aren't real people, you know, this is a fake situation or what have you. And when we get to the actual mediation, we grab the old shit bar and we're like, oh shit, right? So and I just want to remind you, like, the margins of error are pretty wide, right? Because you remember our oath? Remember I had you raise your hand and swear to God, the sacred oath of a community mediator was, I will not make it worse, right? All right. So generally speaking, you have to do a whole lot to make it worse, right? And the main thing that you'd have to do is to judge them, right? And so as long as, you know, like, as long as you are withholding your judgment, you're not putting your judgment on the table, you know, you're working on your reflections, you're working on, you know, and you're doing these early ones with experienced mediators. You all should not be mediating with each other at this point, except for Amanda. Amanda's been mediating for a while. I think she's still on here. Yeah, Amanda's still down there.
Yeah, I'm here.
With you. She can mediate with you. But generally speaking, you should be with a much more experienced mediator that can support you. Okay. And remember, it's not about you all carrying the load 50-50. It is you doing your 100% and they are doing their 100%. Okay. So right now, if you're co-mediating with me, your 100% may be carrying 15, 25% of the load, but it's your 100%. Right? And my 100% may be carrying, you know, 90 to 75% of the load, but that's my 100%. And as you get to the table more often, you commit to staying in the process and you're practicing the skills, your 100% is going to do more of the work. Okay. But right now your responsibility is doing your 100%.